Hi, and welcome back to another video. It is a Sunday afternoon, late afternoon here in Ashifla, and today's video is just sharing our experience using solar system for like 3.5 years now. Yeah, I must say it's really been a good, or it's been a journey, especially living here. Anyway, so about 3.5 years ago, when we decided to move here at Ashifla to our small house here, one of the things that was necessary to figure out was how we're going to get electricity here. Although we had the national grid nearby that we could tap into, it wasn't cheap at all. And also going to do that it meant that you needed to have all the money that was needed to do that at a go, because you're going to buy electric poles, you're going to buy electric cables, among others, to be able to connect to the grid, and that wasn't cheap, I must say. So I was doing then, I decided to explore other electricity or energy options, and one of them was solar system. So good for me. I did have friends that had electrical engineering background. So I could ask lots of questions, learn a lot from them with regard to solar system. So we decided to go solar, and as part of the reason was because we could start small and gradually upgrade the system to something that was going to be very much suitable to go with. So we started off with 180 watts panels, like about 4 pieces of that, 3 kilowatt hybrid inverter, and then 200 gel batteries. Yeah, so that was what we started off with. And the interesting thing about solar system is that you get to learn and you get to improve. So then by then we had installed 50 watt each floodlight, about 4 pieces of that, around the small house, and that was like total of 200 watts power. Then we realized that the solar wasn't lasting for a long time, especially into the night. So then there was a need to adjust that, so we had to change all those 50 watts each to 10 watts each. And yes, it was actually serving the same purpose, because we didn't need so much brightness. And interestingly, 10 watts gives that actually does the job. So that was one of the things that we had to adjust, and it's good, especially when you're using solar system, because then sometimes we tend to use a lot more energy that we don't need, just because maybe we have them in excess. But if you're using solar systems where you're producing your own power and you have limited power, then you're drawn to some of these things, so you make adjustment to them. So that's what we started off with, switching from 50 watts floodlights to 10 watts each. And then aside that, there are a couple of appliances that we're using that we had to also change or adjust. An example was like our electrical iron, which was like 1,000, was it 2,200 or 1,800 watts, one of them. And then we had to change that to like about, I think, 1,000 watts or so. And that was one of the things that we needed to adjust, especially when we're living in the smaller house. So we stayed in, and then we did perform a couple of upgrades over time. So after the 4 pieces of 180 watt panels, we then added a few more, and rounded up to a total of 9 pieces of 180 watts panels. And then also we also upgraded the batteries from 200 to 600 Ah. Yeah, so that's actually serving the house. By then we're using 4 ceiling fans, 2 in the living room, 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the bedroom. We're also using a couple of lights in the internal part of the house, and then also the 4 pieces of floodlights outside. We're having a TV set. We did have a fridge, which was consuming like about 60 watts or so. And then among a few other, kitchen like appliances, like a blender, toaster, among a few other things that we're using. And then also we did have like a water pump that was 0.5 horsepower. So that was like around 300 something, 360 something watts that we're using. So our stay in the 1 bedroom apartment actually, help us appreciate electricity or energy. Yes, when you are generating your energy, there are a few things that you can do, especially when you are like tight budget, where you can't have something that is going to provide you like return unlimited power. So that, I might say, was actually a learning curve for us during our period in there. Then we decided to expand. That's the building. That's switching from the 1 bedroom to a 2 bedroom house. So we built a 2 bedroom house. And then also, of course, now I've been able to learn a lot more about solar system and practice it, implementing it among others. So then all these things were going to go into the sizing of the 2-bedroom house. So yes, we started off with a 2-bedroom house also. We started off with 9 pieces of 460 watts of panels, and then a 5 kilowatt hybrid inverter, and then 10 kilowatts battery. So that for the battery, we had 5 kilowatts each of the battery, and it was good for back then. These were, I think, the appliances that we're using. We're using 2 pieces of 1.5 horsepower air conditioners. We did have a couple of ceiling fan. I think there were about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, total of 5 ceiling fans. That we, of course, you don't turn all of them together. Then we had, I think, about 7 LED lights outside, 10 watts. I think about 5 pieces were 10 watts, and then 2 was 20 watts, or 2 are 20 watts. And then aside from that, a few more appliances. So a TV set. We did have a fridge, just a fridge then, and then lights, internal lights, and then iron, among a few other things. Then after living in the 2-bedroom house for like about some few months, or maybe close to a year, we needed to upgrade the appliances or add a few more appliances. So we've now added appliances such as a washing machine. We also have a microwave. We're using a microwave, among a few other kitchen appliances such as toaster, blender, also air fryer, among a few other things. And then also aside the washing machine, I think the iron that we're using initially was like 1,200 watts. Now we are using a 1,800 watts iron, which help gets the work done better. And then also we do have a CCTV camera that we are using. We also have an electric fence that we are using. Yeah, and then some network devices for internet connectivity. So our demand for energy has actually increased over the period since we've been living in here. And there was the need also to upgrade the solar system. So upgrading in terms of, we had to upgrade the inverter. We also had to upgrade the battery. So initially we're using 5 kilowatts hybrid inverter, and as part of the things I've mentioned, so light, fans, microwave, cooker, washing machine, water pump. So we have a water pump, 0.5 horsepower water pump. We also have a borehole pump that we use, among a few other appliances. There was a need to upgrade from the 5 kilowatt to the 5,000 watt inverter, because then it couldn't serve all these appliances. Especially there are some that you need to have them on together. So you could have a washing machine functioning, and maybe you decide to turn on an air conditioner, or you could have a TV set on, and then maybe have some ceiling fans on as well, and maybe some few lights. So then there was a need to change or upgrade from the 5 kilowatt to 10 kilowatt. Now there were 2 ways we could go about it. One was either having an additional 5 kilowatt hybrid inverter, and then we could connect them in parallel so that they add up to 10 kilowatt. But that also requires that you need to have sort of like a dedicated power for the additional inverter. And thinking about that, I thought it would rather be best if we just switch fully to like a 10 kilowatt hybrid inverter. So we decided to go a full 10 kilowatt hybrid inverter, which also has 2 MPPT charge controller input, so for the panel. So then you could size each charge controller with like a certain number of panels. Of course, you have to be within the limit of the charge controller. So I think it was 5,500 watts for each year. So right now we have 10 pieces of 460 watt panels. So we have 5 for each charge controller. Yes, that's what we currently have. And then also we've also upgraded the battery from 10 kilowatts now to 15 kilowatts. So this is just 5 kilowatts each of the battery. And then also if you look at the battery, the brand, you might see one Sansam, or some being Sansam, and then another being SRNE. So I must say this is actually the same battery, and they're actually from SRNE. A Sansam is like a brand name. The company we buy from here is Sansam, and so it's just more branding with regard to the battery. So it's in terms of the chemistry, the way the battery functions, and the rest, it's just the same thing. So yeah, that's one thing I needed to let you know. And for the 10 kilowatt inverter that we are using now, so that is a single phase hybrid inverter. This is a small house. Our electrical demand isn't so much huge, so then single phase does the job. But if it was like a bigger house that would require a lot of appliances, then single phase haven't been like ideal. Then would have probably needed like a 3-phase inverter, and then maybe more storage, battery storage, which would help get the job done. So that is what we currently use now, and I must say the experience using solar system for like 3.5 years has been very good. For 3.5 years, we've not had to pay any electricity bill or maybe purchase electricity prepaid. Yes, those who use prepaid would usually go to the vendor point, purchase some units, and then load it up onto their meter. We've not had to do any of this for like 3.5 years. So honestly speaking, I actually can't comprehend with that experience, having to go buy units, or maybe having your power off, or maybe power outages and the rest. It's something we've not dealt with for like 3.5 years. So that's one of the advantages you get when you use solar system. Of course, starting off, it wasn't all rosy, like I was saying at first, because we didn't have all the money that could afford us, an entire solution. We needed to start small. So then we didn't have the luxury of using certain appliances. We needed to minimize, the appliances that we're using. And sometimes we needed to, more or less like pay attention. So if we are going to be turning on this appliance, you probably will have to keep this off. If you're going to be using this appliance for this period of time, you needed to minimize the use of things among others. So that was actually the experience. That was some time back, but now it's not really the experience. We're able to use whatever appliance we want at whatever time of the day, and the system just works fine. Also, you may ask on rainy days. This I've actually touched on a couple of times over and over. Yes, so that system relies on day power. Although on rainy days you don't have so much brightness in terms of light, you still have some daylight that the system is able to draw power. So we don't really have any issues when it comes to like whether it's raining, whether it's sunny, it works perfectly well. Yes. And then also currently some of the systems we use, such as like the electric fence, has like a backup battery, and the electric fence doesn't even consume so much power. It's like about 8 watts or 5 watts of power. And then aside from that, the CCTV cameras, there was a need to install CCTV cameras because some time back we had an incident where someone, when we had a fence, so it wasn't even complete, someone came to, I think, steal the copper tape. Yes, part of our copper tape that we had fixed for the lightning arrestor. So that was why we started off with the CCTV camera as well as the electric fence, so as to to deter criminals away. But aside that so far has been the only incident we've had, or the theft issue we've had living here for like 3.5 years. Aside that, we've not had any theft when we're using the bamboo fence. When we didn't even have fence were in place, we didn't have any sort of theft. So it was actually interesting to have experienced that. But it's all good. Yes, you always learn and then improve with some of these things. But so far so good. I must say one of the best decisions we've ever made in terms of living here in Sheffield had to do with starting off with a solar system and affording us to live like totally off grid. So we don't rely on any external source of electricity. Our solar system serves us throughout the year. And as I have given you details of some of these systems, like the inverter, it's a 10 kilowatt hybrid inverter, 40 amps, and then it has 2 MPPT charge controllers, and then it's an SRNE brand. SRNE is one of the popular brands when it comes to solar systems. The battery is also the same, 5 kilowatts each, combined or in parallel. So they are parallel cables that combines each and every one of them. And as part of their features, they also have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity, so able to check the state of the system. Also, our inverter is connected to a Wi-Fi module that allows us to be able to monitor the system, so know the amount of energy that is being generated, what we are using at what time, how long the system will last. So all these information helps you to plan in terms of how you're going to use the system. And it's actually good because, like I say, with solar system, no matter how many or how much energy you generate, it's still a limited power. That is one thing you need to know. It can't be compared to that of the national grid. Of course, you probably may have something oversized or maybe overkill, but it's still a limited power. If you don't use it wisely, you might end up, having had to lose part of power, at a certain crucial time, especially late at night, where maybe you might want to chill the AC, want to use ceiling fan, you might want to watch your favorite movie, among other things. So that's one thing with solar system. But good for us, we haven't had to, experience any of that for like the period that we've been living, especially when we started using or staying in a 2-bedroom house. So the battery, 5 kilowatts each, we have 3 pieces of that, giving us a total of 15 kilowatts. And then also the battery for all from SRNE, yes, brand. And then the battery, the 5 kilowatts, so the difference between the 5 kilowatts as compared to that of the 16 kilowatts we have for the car wash is that the 16 kilowatt is 8,000, has 8,000 cycles, whereas the 5 kilowatt has 6,000 cycles. So if you put that in dates, that's also like about between 15 to 25 years of life cycle, I must say, where you can use this entire system should in case everything works very well. And one thing about solar systems is that as you use it with time, there's a need for you to maintain a system. As part of maintenance, you might have to probably blow up the dust from the inverter. You might have to maybe open it at some point, blow up or clean out all the dust from it, so that it helps the system function properly. Because the inverter especially is equipped with fans, inbuilt fans that cools the system, because it's running 24/7. It's running always. You don't turn it off at any point. Maybe, oh, it's hot, I need to turn it off for some time. No, it's running throughout. So then there's a need for you to make sure that all the fans that are inside are functioning properly. So once a while, if you are doing it by yourself or you have like an expert, you have them come and then service or maintain or clean the system out of any dust, so it is able to last for a long time. Because although it has a life cycle for a certain period, if you don't play your role or you don't do your bit, then you might have the system probably not functioning entirely the way you expect it to function or the way you might want it to function. So that's one of the things that is very important to do. So as time goes on, once a while, you blow up or clean the dust from there, especially the inverter. Make sure that place is well ventilated. So wherever you intend to install your solar system, you need to make sure that it's a well ventilated area. So for our car wash, for instance, we have heat extractors in there which extracts the heat, so the whole place is always cool every now and then. Over here we have the window which is in the storeroom next to where the utility room is. It's always open, so we have the heat being able to move out so that fresh air comes in to help cool the system so that it doesn't get so much warm. And also for the solar panels, especially during the period where, like Hamatan, there's a lot of dust, there's the need for you to once a while climb up to the roof. Yes, if you're having your panels on top of the roof, or maybe have an expert come wash or clean all the dust on it. This has to be done from time to time, so as to help the system be able to generate the power which it's meant to generate. Else the dust limits the amount of sunlight that the system is able to trap. So if you leave that dust in there, especially on the panels, for a longer period of time, it might cause the system to malfunction or maybe not be able to produce up to 8 peak. So those are some of the things that it's necessary to have done. Once in a while, you also inspect the breakers, the SPDs, among other things, to make sure that they are all functioning well, so that you don't get to the point where you don't do any of this, because it's a working system. So you assume that everything is fine, just to the point where maybe it fails you. So it's a system, it's a machine, so it can't fail you if you don't do your part or you don't play your role as part of using it. And these are things that we've had to be doing every now and then, so as to ensure that the system is working very well. So once in a while, I do go through like the app to make sure that there's a power generating, there's what we are using, for a period of time. And sometimes, for instance, ironing like this, we usually iron in like in bulk. So maybe on Sunday night or maybe Monday morning, iron the clothes that I'll be using for a week, so we don't have to be ironing every single day. That's actually not smart way of using electricity, where you have to iron every now and then. So these are some of the things and then also maybe doing laundry. So Saturdays, sometimes you start off from Friday night, Saturdays, and then Sunday. So we don't end up doing all the laundry maybe like on Saturday. Yes, that your system probably could afford doing that, but that's not smart way of using the energy, because even the system you're using, like the washing machine, also needs to rest for some time or after some time of using it. So these are some of the things, especially when you are using solar system or when you're using power that you generate by yourself. You're able to regulate how you go about things, for how long, among other things. So this is in a nutshell what I wanted to share with you with regard to our usage of solar system for 3.5 years. You might ask, is it worth it for us? It's actually more than worth it. It's one of the best decisions we ever took, and if we were to go back to reconsider our decision, I'm sure we still would have gone ahead with solar system, because it's more like a freedom using your own electricity. Where we live, because we're on top of a hill, we do see the next town nearby, and for countless times they have their light off, and we do have light. When it's raining, with the lightning, thunder, and this among others, we don't have our electricity going, because also for our solar system we've implemented lighting arrestor, which is able to trap lightning, channel it to the ground. And then also for the solar system we do have SPDs, also surge protection devices, which also helps with protecting the system. So we've not had to worry. And I must say, whenever it's about to rain over here, it gets rough. Yeah, because there's strong winds, there's lightning, there's thunder. So raining here is not usual, I must say. And we find ourselves, especially on top of a hill, it does get very rough here, but so far so good. It's been great, I must say, living here for 3.5 years. It's total freedom, peace of mind. Yeah, and it's been very refreshing. You do breathe fresh air. We do plant some fruits, food that we eat, such as plantain, maize, cassava. We also have some fruit trees that have been planted in our yard, which of course none of them has been able to bear fruit yet, but hopefully sometime soon we get to enjoy from them as well. So this is just about today's video with regard to using solar system. I'm sure you might have a lot of questions. Now, one thing I must also say, or this would be like a sort of like an advice to you out there, especially if you want to use solar systems, that don't always look at the cheap side of it, especially with regard to the system. So let's say the inverter. Oftentimes you have people contact you, oh, I want you to install a solar system for me. I've already purchased this inverter, I've already purchased this panel, maybe from US, maybe from UK, maybe from China, and I want you to implement it for me. That is not bad. However, the challenge with some of those systems is that you don't have and get to have sort of like support here for them. If there are any issues, it means that you have to take those systems back to wherever I bought them, and then it has to be resolved for you, and that is not going to be cheap at all, and that is also going to take a lot of time. So I do advise people, like we do buy from Santam. Santam is here. He's like a partner to SRNE. He sells SRNE products, maybe among a few other products. So whenever there's any issue or challenge with the system, it's easier to have access to him. If he has to replace, if there has to be change of part or something, it's easier to get that done. But if you've bought your system from elsewhere, it gets challenging. So there was an issue where clients had already bought an inverter, I think about 2 pieces of 2-phase inverter each, I think about 5 kilowatts or 10 kilowatts each. And interestingly, this particular type of inverter was out of like service. So there was no longer support for it. So in terms of the software, you needed to update the software of the system was no longer up. And here's a case where there wasn't even any manual sort of resources to rely on to be able to know how to properly install the system. So it was really a challenge looking at such system. So maybe for panels, of course, panels are fine. Panels are not so much problematic when it comes to solar system. So maybe with that you can probably buy from elsewhere. And then also one thing about solar systems is that if you are using, let's say, this brand, it is good to have the brand for the inverter as well as the battery, because the chemistry that exists between them is like the same, or they understand each other. It's easier for them to communicate among themselves, as against having a different brand inverter, having a different brand battery. Those doesn't really work well, or doesn't help, especially when there's even an issue. It's difficult to sometimes figure out what probably the challenge could be. So that's just a piece of advice to you out there. If you tend to have a solar system, and try to learn so much about what you want to have done. And also, like I've always said, don't say I have a 2-bedroom house, I need a solar system. Rather, give the quantity of appliances you have, what sizes of each, how long you use, what and what, among others, so that it's easier to be able to size the system properly, so that you don't end up having a solution, then it doesn't serve your purpose, and then you can't blame somebody, because you have to. It's very important. And then also, you should also look out for people who tell you, oh, if there's your budget, we can still work out something, or maybe this can do a system for you. Because I've encountered people like that. They've installed a solar system, all right, but it's not serving their purpose, because people just lie to them to get money. There's something for them and it's not really working. You should also be mindful of such people, because some of them are just in for the money as against trying to educate you. So for me, people that I've encountered, I try to educate them on what it can do. Some, like I was sharing, one particular client, we had to change some of the lights, flat light, from I think 30 or 20 watts to like 10 watts. They had to, because they were starting small, so they had to regulate their refrigerator from high to like mid. It doesn't work, but around that time, because they were starting low, they didn't needed to, because if you have it high, means it's consuming a lot of power. Although fridges are equipped with thermostat that regulates temperature, the higher it is in terms of the regulator, it means that it's going to draw more power. But if you haven't made, it really reduces the amount of energy or power it draws. So these are some of the things you get to learn, especially if you try to learn more about solar system. And it is a beautiful system, I must say. How it works, and one interesting thing I also have to say is that the first time I was introducing my electrician to solar system, he didn't expect that, oh, it produces so much power. Yeah, so he was just touching the wires, especially for the 2-bedroom house, because for 2-bedroom house we are using a 48-volt system. The 1-bedroom house was a 24-volt system, so that he could touch, and the shock was not so much. But he did try to touch that live wire from the 2-bedroom house, and he had a shock of his life. So ever since then, he's actually accorded that respect to solar system. So you can generate as much as energy from solar system, and it works well. So don't think it's solar systems like a scam. No, it's not a scam. It actually works if it is done properly for you. So that'll be just about it for this video. I'm sure you might have a lot of questions, so you can just drop them in the comment section. And if you do have experiences also with solar system, or maybe other forms of energy, you can share them. Of course, also if you have any experience using the national grid, whether it serves you well, whether it's not serving you well, you can also share them in the comment section and get to learn about them. So that'll be just about it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.